Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to plunge into a question that sounds pretty simple, but actually has huge implications for your daily life.
Mm-hmm.
What's your relationship like with the person you'll be years from now?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you picture future you, do they feel like, well, you?
Or do they feel more like a stranger?
Exactly.
Like stranger.
And it's a really crucial distinction, because how connected you feel to that future version of yourself, that profoundly impacts the decisions you're making right now.
Absolutely. And our sources for this deep dive really get into this idea. We've been looking at excerpts from this wonderfully simple, but actually surprisingly powerful website, FutureMe.org.
Oh, yeah, where you can write letters to your future self. It's a neat concept.
It really is. And we're also drawing heavily from the insights and the research in the book, Your Future Self, How to Make Tomorrow Better Today, by Hal Hershfield. He's a professor specializing in behavioral decision-making, psychology, that sort of thing. Right. So our mission today, basically, is to try and unravel this mystery. Why do we often feel this weird sense of distance from our future selves?
Mm-hmm.
What are the mental traps and biases that lead us to make choices today that future you might seriously regret?
And crucially, what are some practical, actual strategies we can use to bridge that gap, to build a better tomorrow for you?
Yeah, build those bridges.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Why is thinking about future you, let alone actually feeling connected to them, why is that so challenging?
Well, the book kicks off with a really thought-provoking concept. It suggests that maybe, just maybe, we don't have one single unchanging self at our core. Instead, perhaps we're more like a collection, an aggregation of separate selves across time. So in a very real sense, you aren't just an I, you're actually a we.
That's a bit mind-bending, isn't it? So, the me today isn't really the same me from when I was, say, 8 years old.
Well, do you feel like the exact same person?
I mean, I feel like some core identity there, but yeah, gosh, so much has changed. My body, my views.
Exactly. We feel that core identity, that thread. But when you look closely, many parts of us do change dramatically over time. Our bodies, obviously, but our experiences shape us in new ways, and research even shows that fundamental personality traits,
Like what?
like how conscientious you are or your level of emotional stability, those can shift quite a bit for many people over, say, a decade.
Okay, right. So if we're changing all the time, what actually holds us together? What makes me over time? The sources mentioned memory as one link.
Memory is definitely one connection, yeah? Today's self remembers past self. That makes sense.
Is that all?
Well, the research mentioned in the book, including some really interesting studies looking at caregivers for people with dementia, suggests something potentially even deeper might be that thread of continuity.
Okay.
It might be our moral self. Whether we're seen as kind, empathetic, ethical.
So our core values.
Kind of, yeah. The idea is if those core moral traits stay consistent, even if memory fades or other abilities change, people often still feel like fundamentally it's the same person. But if those moral traits change dramatically...
Then they feel like a different person. The strain.
Exactly. That person can feel like a complete stranger, even to those closest to them.
Wow. And the challenge here, I guess, is that the more time passes, the greater that perceived distance between these selves can grow, right?
Precisely. Yourself right now and yourself 30, 40 years down the line. They might feel so different, so lacking in connection, that future you does genuinely seem like a stranger.
Okay, and here's where it gets, really practical and maybe a bit uncomfortable.
Right, because think about how you treat strangers compared to how you treat yourself or, someone you really care about.
Yeah, I'm definitely less likely to make big sacrifices for a random person on the street.
Exactly. We're inherently less likely to prioritize their interests, less willing to put ourselves out for them.
So, the deep insight here is, if your brain effectively treats your future self like another person, maybe even a stranger, well, suddenly it's not so baffling why we do things today that we end up regretting later on.
Yeah, like eating that extra slice of cake or not putting money aside for retirement or skipping that workout. Again.
It feels like we're sacrificing our present comfort, our now, for someone we barely know, someone who doesn't even quite feel like us yet.
It feels almost illogical from the present moment perspective, doesn't it? Why make an uncomfortable choice now for this distant, fuzzy figure? The desires and feelings of your present self are immediate, they're vivid, they feel much more important.
Okay, so beyond just this core disconnect, this stranger feeling, What are the specific mental pitfalls? The book calls them time travel errors, which I like. What are those common mistakes we make when thinking about the future?
Yeah, it's a great metaphor. The book uses this travel idea to break it down. So one major error is that we miss our flights.
Miss our flights.
Mm.
Mean
Meaning, we get so completely consumed by present day stuff, the urgent emails, the immediate deadlines, putting out fires, that we simply fail to consider the future at all.
Right, it just gets zero mental bandwidth. Lost in the tyranny of the urgent. Okay, what's another one?
Another one is poor trip planning. So maybe we do think ahead sometimes, but it's often only in a very vague, surface level way.
Like, yeah, I should save more someday.
Exactly. We don't really sit down and properly consider what the future will actually look like or how it will feel, what specific challenges or opportunities might come up. It just stays this blurry, unformed picture.
And the third one seems particularly insidious. It's about how we assume future us will be, isn't it?
Precisely. We pack the wrong clothes. We rely way too much on our present self's current feelings, our circumstances right now, our emotional state, and we incorrectly project all of that onto a future self who will almost certainly feel and be different.
Okay, this packing the wrong clothes thing,
Yeah.
that connects directly to specific psychological biases, right?
Mhm.
Like, thinking my mood today is how I'll always feel.
Exactly. One big one is projection bias. We just tend to assume our future selves will have the same preferences, feelings, even the same amount of willpower that we have right now. It's incredibly hard to appreciate how you'll feel or behave when you aren't in a strong emotional state like hungry or stressed or super excited, or the other way around, how you'll act when you are in that state.
So we make decisions based on these intense current feelings.
That our future selves just won't necessarily share. Or they'll have different feelings altogether.
And then there's that other fascinating one, the end of history illusion.
Yes. That one's great. This is the bias where we look back at our past and we clearly see how much we've changed our taste in music, our opinions, our life goals.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But then we look from the present forward and we somehow assume we're pretty much done changing. Like, this is me now, this is how I'll be.
So weird. We acknowledge massive past transformations, but deny similar future ones are likely.
It is weird, isn't it? We see the change behind us, but not ahead. And these biases, they really fuel things like procrastination, don't they? The book makes a really sharp point about procrastination.
What's that?
It's not just putting something off casually. It's knowing on some level that you're actually harming yourself, your future self, by doing it.
Right. You're choosing present comfort over future well-being.
Exactly. You're prioritizing your present self's immediate desire to avoid negative feelings, the hassle of starting, maybe the fear of not doing it well. You choose that short-term relief, but you fail to fully connect with the fact that your future self won't just have to do the task anyway.
They'll probably feel even worse doing it. Under pressure, maybe.
Precisely. They'll feel those same negative emotions, maybe even amplified. It's like this battle where your present self sacrifices your future self's well-being for a little bit of ease right now.
And another huge trap that behavioral economics shows us all the time is just the overwhelming pull of immediate rewards versus future benefits.
Oh, it's incredibly powerful. You see it in experiments constantly. Most people will choose a slightly smaller reward right now over a slightly larger reward, even just a short time in the future.
Like the classic $990 today versus $1,000 in 6 months example.
Exactly. A lot of people take the $990 now. But here's the interesting twist. If you push both options into the future, say $900 in a year versus $1,000 in 18 months, suddenly people become much more patient. They're more likely to choose the bigger amount.
So the immediacy, just having it right now, that tangible bird in the hand, completely warps the calculation.
It does. The present feels concrete, it feels magnified, it feels certain. The future, that feels compressed, distant, fuzzy, uncertain. Dealing with a task today feels heavy, but thinking about that same task 6 months from now, somehow it feels lighter, less real.
Okay, so that's the problem laid bare. We feel disconnected from future us. We fall into these predictable mental traps. But the good news is there are concrete things we can actually do to bridge this gap, right? To help present you make better choices for future you.
There absolutely are, and a really fundamental strategy is simply to make your future self feel nearer, more tangible, less like that